first start on how to do the base, you will need a toilet paper roll that try and cut a straight line through it. Then take a credit card or a gift card, that would be the same size of a credit card, and place it leaving about 1/4 of an inch, 3 to 4 millimeters from the edge. And then make a small fold so it would give you the idea where you're supposed to fold the toilet roll paper in two. And then cut the excess paper. Try and make straight cuts, because that will be very important. And then cut the length excess. Leave about 1 millimeter from the edge on each side. Then use some masking paper, and here I have to stress the fact that you need to use masking paper, not regular paper, because this will go in the oven multiple times, and regular paper will melt and have fumes and all kinds of stuff. But masking paper is paper. Masking tape is paper, so it will be just fine in the oven. So make sure that you do stick together the two sides very, very well, so they will not move at all. After which you need to wrap the whole concoction in aluminum foil. Cut the aluminum foil a little bit wider than your roll is high, and then place the shiny side outside. Don't start at the corners, start in the very middle of it, and then try to roll it making as little creases as possible, because it will be more helpful when you need to take it out. If it has a lot of creases, then the polymer clay will stick in the creases. I mean, nothing will happen, it will just be harder to take out once you're done with the whole thing. That's why on this one, even if I normally use very thin aluminum foil, on this one I use the fairly thick one, the heavy duty, so I don't get too many creases. Then get some scrap clay and roll it on the third thickest setting. You don't want your final medallion to be too thick and too heavy. Then start wrapping again at the middle. You don't want to start rolling at the corner, because at the middle it will give it much better resistance to breakage and anything else. And then with your finger make the line that will tell you where to cut, and make sure that the cut is very, very on the spot, so to speak. Don't have overlapping. You can have a little bit of you can pull a little bit to put them together, but don't have overlapping, because that will deform the surface of the final medallion when you have to put the veneer on. Then you can start cutting the edges. Cut the ends at about the same line with where the toilet roll paper ends. And make sure that your cut is even and very perpendicular on the sides. At one point, and I will tell you when you will have to sand those ends, to make sure that they are very even and very flush. You see, I am pressing it a little bit on the inside, towards the inside, to give me a better idea of where to cut. And I am using the X-Acto knife to cut, not the blade, because with the X-Acto knife I have more control on where I have to place the cut. Then you can refine it a little bit with the blade. And it doesn't really have to be exactly flush with the end, but it has to be evenly spaced from the end, if you want, so that you do not have it going up or down. Again, this cut has to be perfectly perpendicular on the sides. That will help you to figure out if you did it right or not. You can go like this with the X-Acto knife if it helps you more, but again, make sure that you even it out and you have perfectly perpendicular lines. That's why I showed you two ways of doing this cut, whichever is more comfortable for you. And this first part, you can use it for any kind of veneer, not just for the Celtic veneer. I will make a separate tutorial on how to do this shape, but this one is special for the Celtic cane wallet. So again, great care, and watch out for those ends on the sides, because they might have the tendency to rise a bit. And at this point you don't really care about fingerprints or anything, because this will be covered. Now take your blade and make a cut about 3/4 of an inch on one end, 3/4 of an inch from the edge. Make sure that you make the cut evenly distanced from the edge all around. This will be your lid. Then take your X-Acto knife and make a second cut about 1 millimeter from the first one. You might have to go back and imprint again the first cut, because the clay will be pushed a little bit when you do the X-Acto knife cut. So use the X-Acto knife to enhance the first cut, so you can remove the 1 millimeter strip that's left between the two cuts. And you are ready to bake. And you can do this step before baking or after baking it. After baking it, you'll use bake and bond. If you do it before baking it, you won't have to use anything. Get a slice of scrap clay on the thinnest setting, and you will need some skewer sticks, bamboo skewers. And don't use toothpicks, those are too thin, because you'll have to do a fairly thick leather tongue to support all this. And cut one piece that would be pretty much the same width as the lid, and the other one about 1 inch, and start rolling them around the skewer. after you blend the two ends, make sure that the skewer stick moves freely in that tube, otherwise it will be very hard to take out and you might have to just redo the whole thing. So cut and then press gently on the work table to blend those ends, and trim nice and straight the edges. Now on this side, on this part, even if you don't do a terrific job, you'll be able to go with your X-Acto knife and do some trimming of those after they get baked, and blend the ends the same way. So do the cut and then gently press against your work surface and trim the ends in a straight line. Now, if you already baked that part, you'll have to place some bacon bond. If you did not, then you don't have to do anything. Just press the little tubes against the sides, and you will put one, the wider one, on the main body of the medallion, with the top end flush with where the medallion body ends, and then pull back those skewer sticks so you can place the lid tube. So the leather will go through those tubes. And then bake it with the skewer sticks in. Now for the body we shall use a blend of 1 part gold and 2 parts black. On the second thinnest setting, do a sheet and place 1 slice of the simple Celtic knot cane in the very middle of it. Then take the bar Celtic cane that you have reduced to about 5 millimeters and cut about 1 inch lengths and start putting them together. You will have a little bit of trouble to until you figure out exactly where they match, and make sure that you match both the front and the back of the cane. And this way you will be building a Celtic knot bar. Remember, this is an endlessly repeatable cane, so you can practically make it a yard long if you want. If you did it correctly, then it will align perfectly. And of course you can cut slices from just the regular cane and place them, but I found that if you already build a bar, they look much neater when you cut the slice to place it. Then this is what you will use as border. Then let's build a corner, and the corner you can actually place it so it would be just the corner of the frame, but you can build a larger corner, practically another Celtic knot altogether. So again, cut 4 pieces. I'm not cutting them that long anymore because it's not a lot of slices that I will need from this, only 4. And then place the pieces together so they form a bigger corner. Again, you'll have to look exactly how they match and match them perfectly, but arrange them in such a way that you have in the corners of the square the corners of the cane, and then the open sides just matching together. And here you have a complex Celtic knot. And we shall cut 4 slices of this. Now let's place our Celtic cane slices on the veneer. First, let's place the complex Celtic knot in the corners. And I want to place them so they will be a little bit dimensional, so this is why I'm not rolling them in. Of course, you can do it differently and place them in the veneer, in the base, but I want them to be a little bit raised to create more dimension. And now cut slices from the bar that you have created and place them in between those corners to create a frame. Make sure that you place them perfectly straight. And don't press on the slice until you're sure that you have placed it properly. So in case you did not place it properly, you can lift it and replace it. And then trim the extra end. And do the same for the other 3 sides. And again, be sure that you place them at the exact same distance, all of them, and very straight. And then gently use your roller to make sure that they are stuck on the base clay, but don't press too hard because you don't want to deform anything. Then place some Bake and Bond or a liquid clay and smear it very well. Especially be careful on the sides that go near the tubes where the leather will go. Make sure that you do have the Bake and Bond or TLS all the way to the tube, and very careful with the edges and the sides that everything is covered. Then just simply place your veneer, and you'll have to place it a little bit lower on the side towards the lid. Now you can make this much lower if you want the lid to overlap more. So do not place it all the way to the top edge, but Make sure that you have at least 3 millimeters from the edge, because you do need the lid to overlap a little bit for a better closure of this little wallet. And if you use another type of veneer, you can go as far down as I don't know, 1/3 of the body. But on this one, you want as much Celtic cane to show up on the body as you can. And then start gently flattening the edges, so they would create a nice slope. So hold your whatever you're using for a small roller at an about 45 degrees angle, and go over all the edges of all the canes and of all the corners to have the very edge of the slice completely at the same level with the base clay, and it would be nicely smooth and rounded. If at any time you get any kind of line deformity, and careful about, see, I got an air pocket there. You have to be very careful on the air pockets underneath, because that will deform the side of your veneer horribly. So as I was saying, if at any time you get any kind of deformation of the line and your line is not straight, you will be able to use your X-Acto knife and gently trim whatever is not straight there. This will be the most time-consuming part, because you want to have everything perfectly smooth and perfectly even. And no deformation of anything. See how I had a little bit of deformation there, so I'm going to use my X-Acto knife to trim that line. And gently remove the excess. And then use again the paintbrush handle to redo that beveled edge. As I said, this is the most time consuming of all. And once you do one side, you do the other side exactly the same. And pay great attention to the very edges of your veneer to make sure that they are very well flush with the base. Now it's time to trim the bottom. Careful, because the corners will have the tendency to slide a little bit, but you want the veneer to be very, very slightly longer than the very edge. So place your second veneer, and again make sure that the bottom is equal on both sides and it's very well set in the under the tubes. Now take some of the scrap pieces that you had from making the canes and chop them finely, and then make a snake out of them. And the snakes should be about the same width as you have the uncovered area between the two sides. Cut the snake in two in length. Place some bacon bond or TLS between the two sides. Place the snake and then gently remove a little bit in a slope right under the tube. Now let's cover the tubes. I am taking slices of, I kept some of the big cane before I reduced it, of the bar. And I am placing the slices on the base clay, that mix of gold and black, and then flatten them. After which you place some bacon bond on the tubes. And you place the slices. Make sure that you work with clear, straight edges. And careful on the slice going all the way under in the spot where the tube connects to the body. Trim the ends perfectly straight. And do the same for the top tube and for the tubes on the other side. Now, after you bake it one more time, that is when you sand. Before doing this step, you sand the very edges. Now take a sheet of the base clay, the mix of gold and black, and put it on the same thickness as the body, and cut a strip the same width as the lid is tall. Cut it in two and reduce some of the bigger simple Celtic knot cane until it is at the same size as your lid is wide. Cut two slices and place those slices right in the middle of your two cut strips. Now on this one you don't have to worry about it standing out, so we will just plain flatten it with a roller, but very carefully so we don't distort, we don't get a lot of distortion. And you see the sides kind of bulged out, but that is just fine. Just use your blade and trim out the excess. Now before placing those, put some bacon bond or TLS on the very top edge of your lid, and then put a sheet of the backing clay through the thickest setting on your pasta machine, and place the smeared end of the lid on the sheet, pressing gently, and use your X-Acto knife to cut out the shape. You will not be able to cut out the side that's over the tubes. You'll just do that whenever you turn it upside down. Make sure that you don't press in the very middle of it, because you're going to put a dent in there. Now you can put your sides, the veneer on the sides, and again, like for the body, smear that bacon bond all the way under the tubes. Then place the veneer with great care that that slice of cane is right in the middle, and then trim the excess right where the tubes meet the lid. Check for air bubbles and check that everything is well stuck. And Actually, what I forgot to mention, the strip of veneer has to be about 2 millimeters longer than the lid, exactly the space that you have left above the veneer on the body, because that is where the the lid will overlap. Then once you have baked the body, do the same thing for the bottom, to add the bottom as you did to add the top. So place some Bake and Bond or liquid glue on the edge, then make a thickest setting sheet of clay, place the body with the bottom on that sheet of clay, cut out the contour, and again great care to not press on the very middle of the bottom. If you do just a gentle dent, that's fine, because once you bake it standing up with the final bake, it will straighten out. Then trim the excess on the bottom. You'll have to have about like a groove left between the very bottom and the sides of the body. That will have pretty much a 90 degrees angle. And you can do the bottom before baking the body or after. Now, once you baked everything, you are pretty much ready to arrange everything. There will be a third tutorial on how to make the beads. If your lid doesn't really fit on top of the body, and that will definitely happen, I will show you in the end what to do. Now let's cover up those grooves that are between the bottom and the top and the body. Place some Bake and Bond, and then do thin snakes again with the choppings of the cane remnants. Then place them in the groove, and on the top cut, actually not cut, but flatten them a little bit where they are on the side of the tubes, because that's where the leather strap will come out, and you want it to be able to stay put right in the middle. You don't have to do that on the bottom. On the bottom, just place your snake all around it. Then for your leather straps, what I do, I usually make a knot at the end, and then I place some clay and make a bead on top of the knot and bake it with the wrist. Now I have sanded and buffed my whole thing, and then I will gently heat the lid so I can set it in place. And I'm going to use the X-Acto knife to gently pull out the edge, so it would fit perfectly the body, and then just let it cool. And once it cools, you don't have to worry anymore, because it fits the body perfectly. Then place your leather strings, and there you go. You have a beautiful wallet medallion with Celtic motif. Happy claying!